Hey Siri. Siri, go to photos.
You'll need to unlock.
Okay, bro. Okay, I'm back. Siri. Get a googly faggot. Cooch, cooch. Stop here, tell some of the day we murders the skeleton. He murders the skeleton. Changing Siri, based on characteristics. Shut up. Oh. Siri, shut up. No, stop. Really, he cracks the neck on the fucking skeleton guy. Oh, stop. Oh, stop. You coach. Siri, neary. Coach. Is it physically possible to terraform Europa? How to terraform Europa? That's what I see. Hey Siri. Siri. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. How to add continents on Europa? Siri, go to photos. Siri, this is how you kill a skeleton. What do I do? Siri. Siri. Shut up, faggot. Coach. Siri. Siri, get a photo. Siri. Pussy collapse. Siri, shut up. The smiling retard POV. The cutting dick Siri. Oh! Siri, shut the fuck up.
One,
Siri,
2, 3, go!
shut up. I'm gonna kill. I'm gonna kill this skeleton. Retard you. Dart. No, nobody cares about this song. It's like twist, twist, twist. Kill this skeleton. Dart. No, nobody cares about this song. It's like twist, twist, twist. Kill this skeleton. What the? Wait, there's a glitch. Wait. Siri, you're a faggot. Siri, shut the fuck up, you stupid little faggot, you fucking faggot. Siri, shut up. Siri. Siri. Shut the fuck up. What the f- What the fuck is that? Siri. Are you Siri. Shut up, faggot. Siri. My cat is crying. My cat is crying. Shut the fuck up. Siri. Shut the fuck up. Twitching, twitch, 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 twitch. Siri, Siri, ow. Shut the fuck up. Goodbye, skeleton. I rip your head. Siri. Shut up. Whoa, chit chat, pushy. Dude. Hey Siri. Oh, shut the fuck up. Hey Siri, dear. Hey Siri. Shut up. Siri. Shut the fuck up. Siri, Master Super Floof. Siri. Fucking stupid. Siri. Matt Super Floof. Matt Super Floof. Shut the fuck up. I didn't say add super glue effect. Siri. Siri. Shut up. Siri. Siri. Cat cry. Cat cry. Cat cry. Siri. Shut up. Siri, ride down up, ride down up, right down, ride down. Shut up. Siri. Shut up. Siri, did you know this fucking pussy tank? Siri. Siri. She's the fucker. Siri. Shut up, faggot. Shut up, faggot. Siri. Shut up. Siri. Shut up, pussy. Siri. Shut up. Siri. Siri. Shut up. Siri. 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 I'm crying. No, no, no. Siri, shut up. Siri. This was because of Dave and Babby. Blah, 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 blah. Siri. I said it's because of Dave and Bambi. Siri, shut the fuck up. Siri, shut up. Siri, shut up. Siri, shut up. Siri, shut the fuck up. Siri, shut the fuck up. Siri, go to Google. Siri, go to Google.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone.
Io has an orbit of around 26 hours, 36 hours, 42 hours. This would also mean that an eclipse would not really last long, around 2 hours or 3 hours for an eclipse like this. I'm talking about when Jupiter blocks the sunlight from Io, so yeah. This is actually just because of the orbital speed. You see, Jupiter has a strong gravity because of gases. Gases are heavier. Gases look like they don't weigh anything, but once they're on gas giants and larger compounds or larger concentrations, it would be so high that it would actually weigh something else, like even heavier than Earth. This makes it why Jupiter has such a strong gravity. Because of its gases, it pulls inwards, which makes it heavier. Is the gas on Jupiter heavier than Jupiter? I don't think so. Does the gas pull inward from Jupiter's gravity? It also constantly pulls hydrogen and helium and other gases all together. In the center, because Jupiter does have a gravity in the center. It also does host 4 moons. One of these moons are Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. Io's orbit is much closer. Unfortunately, over time, Io would slowly pass inward to Jupiter. This is because its tidal or orbit decay, which mostly happens when friction stops and it would go closer and closer. It would also cause these volcanic effects to go stronger and stronger to the point that it would be ripped apart into shreds. Once it hits the breaking point, it would be so unbelievably volcanic that it could actually become a lava moon, like in a lava ocean. Or completely be dead already by that time. After that, Jupiter would have beautiful visible rings. But for Europa, it's much more different. Europa's orbit is around 3.5 days, which means that that's 3 times the day on Earth. That's also around, again, 3 times the day on Mars, but a bit less, like 3.2 or 3.1. Its radius is around 1,561 kilometers in radius. This makes it large, but still not really actually large because its rocky core is actually really small. It could be, depending a lot, according to NASA, around 700 kilometers in radius. It also has a really low density just because of the minerals in its layer. Ice almost doesn't weigh anything. Well, ice does weigh something. But on Europa, it weighs much heavier, but still doesn't change the gravity a bit. I mean, it could slightly change the gravity, just a few percent, but it doesn't really change anything, so it would be almost the exact same. Without the ocean or ice, it would actually significantly decrease its gravity. its gravity could go around 10 to 9 pounds. And this is just because of the oceans. Also, this makes it much heavier. Actually, ocean does weigh something, and yes, ice does weigh something. This basically, two of them together would mean that it would have a few pounds increase, and it would have a heavier gravity a bit. But that would also mean that the radius friction could be a bit different. It's an eclipse. Its eclipse is even longer than on Io. For example, an eclipse on Europa is around 15 hours or even longer. This would also mean that since it's such a long time, you can just enjoy an eclipse on Jupiter. But that would also mean that if Europa had colonists but wasn't terraformed, it could disrupt sleep cycles. But over time, their sleep cycles would significantly change. Yes, day and night would happen. But Jupiter wouldn't even move at an instant. Because in this time lapse, you can see Jupiter in each phases. These phases are crescent, full, and also other phases that have one. Like even a totally dark phase. But that would also happen that Europa would also be completely blocked. Imagine colonists and witnessing an eclipse, and that would mean that it would be much longer. It would feel like a prime version of an eclipse, but even longer. Unfortunately, Jupiter is too large, so the eclipse may still be visible, but you wouldn't see those solar things. You would just see a totally dark ring. That ring you see is from Jupiter's atmosphere. So it makes this weird ring effect. Ring effect once Jupiter. And this view would be completely blocked. However, on Ganymede, it's even more different. Ganymede's orbit is around 7 days, or 7.1 days. This means that an eclipse would even last even longer, almost like a day long, which would mean that it could be around 2 to 1 day. This would mean that an entire, even if an entire Earth day skipped, it would still be already completely dark. City lights would still be on for around 2 to 1 day. energy consumption, electricity bills may skyrocket too because Ganymede's night lasts much longer than on the dark side on Earth because it's around 12 hours, but for this one, it's around even much longer. It is around 3.5 days long. Similar to Europa's orbit, Europa's full completion orbit, but that would also mean that the dark side would have even extremely high electricity bills, probably because of its dark side and it's such a long time. It would last over 3.5 days and then finally come at the morning and then come at the night like usual. Also, it would significantly disrupt our sleep cycles even longer, but it would also significantly shift our sleep cycles. The next is Callisto. Unfortunately, Callisto does not have an eclipse. Well, it does, but it doesn't really last long because since it's really far, and since its inclination is the same. But since it's pretty far, it makes this eclipse pretty small, so it wouldn't actually appear sometimes. You would just only see its 3 moons far away. Its dark side on Callisto, well, since Callisto's orbit is around 16.6 days. This would mean that wait. Oh, fuck. 8.8. Siri. Wait. That would be equal to 8 days long for its dark side. That is also equal, that is even longer than the dark side on Ganymede, because that's nearly 3 times longer than the dark side. That would also mean that electricity bills would last like a skyrocket. Lights would also be on for days until finally turning them off. In the day, you would see 3 moons in the morning, and in the night, you would see the same thing. The full Jupiter would look in the night only, not in the morning. Well, it would look like it's full in the morning, but that would also mean that it would be very early morning or later morning. But the full Jupiter would actually be in total somewhere like in the dark side facing the front from Jupiter's full illumination. Also, its luminosity from Jupiter is even brighter than on the moon. For example, if you were on Io, it would be so bright that it would actually illuminate like almost the morning. But for Europa, it's a bit darker, but still the same. It would be incredibly bright, and it would be much luminous than the moon in the sky. But for Ganymede, it's a bit darker. It would still look the same, but it would look a bit darker. It would still look amazing, like in the sky. It looks like it's the morning, but just a bit darker. But for Callisto, it's even much more darker, since its orbit is even nearly 3 times longer. 2.3 times longer than the orbit of Ganymede. That would be so long that illumination would look, again, brighter than the moon, but it would also look pretty dark. So you would see the same illumination as the moon, but a bit brighter, like 2 times brighter, but just a bit differently. Jupiter's illumination and also its reflectivity from its albedo is also so bright that in Earth's view at the night, you would see it pretty brightly. But Venus is even brighter, since it's the brightest planet we know. Because since it's high albedo, it would mean that it would be visible from the sky. But for Saturn, it's completely different. Saturn has around 7 known moons. Mimas, Enceladus, Cephas, Dione, Rhea, Titan, Iapetus. These 7 moons actually do have something in them. First is Mimas. Its rotation is around, and orbit is also around 22 hours, or around 22 hours and 37 minutes. An eclipse wouldn't be even rare at all. Also, an eclipse on Mimas wouldn't last at all. It would just last around 1 hour and 50 minutes until finally just getting some light. But for Enceladus, it's completely different. Its orbital period is around 32 hours, which would have almost no eclipse. However, over time, it would actually, because since Saturn over time starts tilting, it would actually cause this to happen. Mimas also in time-lapse has an unstable orbit, so it could cause that to happen. It's not rare at all, but it can happen, actually. In the year 2125, in that year, in the second month of 20th day, Enceladus from its thing would finally get an eclipse, but not actually, because I just went a bit too far from that. An eclipse doesn't really last long at all. It's not actually really long at all. The eclipse, the eclipse is around 2 hours long, a bit like that. The next is Cephas. Cephas's rotation is around 45 hours, but for Enceladus, it's around 32 hours. But for Cephas, it's around 45 hours. "45 hours and 18 minutes. In the year 2126, at the 11th month and the 8th day, Saturn almost has a completely perfect blockage, but not really like that. It has a blockage which is around 3 hours long for it's an eclipse. So its eclipse is not really that long. It lasts a bit similarly, but a bit longer. The next is Dione. Dione has an orbital period of around 2.7 days. Or 2.37 days in total. Its eclipse is most likely, yeah, it's literally fucking that. An eclipse would last over around, I think actually 3 hours or 2 hours, because the things I talked about was wrong. Or actually, it could be 5 hours, but maybe something different. The next is Rhea. Rhea is the 5th moon of Saturn, since its orbit is around 4.5 days, which is also meaning that's around nearly 2 times longer than Dione's orbit. It would have a similar longer orbit, just a bit differently. Just a bit longer. For an eclipse, it would last around 4 hours, I think. Then it's Titan. It's even much longer. Titan's orbit is actually around 15.9 days. Nearly 16 days, but just a bit different. An eclipse from this in the year 2126 at the 11th day and 15th day, I mean. It would be completely blocked. Finally, it regains its light from just 2 hours or 1 hour long, just because it's quite far out. But Iapetus, no eclipse at all. Its eclipse is extremely rare, maybe doesn't happen at all. Iapetus also has a completely different orbit. It's probably likely a captured object, or maybe a planet of maybe actually a moon from the formation, but with a very unstable orbit, which made the inclination significantly shift. So, since the orbit from this formation was very unstable, it caused this to shift its inclination and also change its orbital distance, which is around 79 days. This would mean that if there's colonies on there, its dark side would be so long that it would last only around 39 days. Siri, what is 39 plus 39? That would be so long that electricity bills would be skyrocketing that high. And it would be holding the record of the longest moon orbit, or even the dark side, because it's actually a spherical moon, as I'm saying. The longest orbit on the Jovian system, which only with known moons, is around Callisto. Callisto has the most record of the most furthest orbit. The closest is Io, but it's also way too close, so it would be slowly torn apart soon. Also, Jupiter has multiple outer moons. And if you try scrolling, it's really long, actually, because Jupiter captured lots of these moons just because of this shit. The longest and furthest ever moon that holds the record of the Jovian system is actually called S/2003J2. That is so long and far that it's around 2.6 years for its orbit, and its rotation is really unstable around 104 days. But this is actually just a captured body, not actually a planet, a part of the formation. Because if you see any objects that look like they're outside from their moon systems, but also look like they're in unstable elliptical, bad inclinations, and also unstable rotations, that actually just literally means that it's not a part of the formation. That's just literally a part of the solar system's formation, but that would also mean that it was also originally probably somewhere from the asteroid belt. From the distance you see from this, well, it's around 1,000 meters, which would mean that somehow going outside would be almost impossible because its gravity is extremely low. So, yeah. It's actually probably even lower than Deimos's gravity. So low that you'd probably jump hundreds of meters until almost escaping the asteroid, or you just would completely escape the asteroid from jumping. You would probably be so far that you would just only see Jupiter like a bit of a bright dot, but you would see it a bit differently. If there were somehow colonists on these outer moons that were expanded, then they could have something with that. They could hold resources and also a part of something else different. Which is, yeah, like why it is. So, yeah. 2003 J2 holds the record of the longest ever orbit ever, which is so far that it would take around even longer than Earth's orbit and even longer than Mars's orbit and slightly a bit half than the orbit of Ceres, which is mostly a dwarf planet. The closest minor moon, or I meant inner moon, that we know is Metis. Metis is basically the closest moon, and it's actually going to be probably somewhere going to be ripped apart in the future because the minor moon will be closer and slowly, gradually closer until it finally gets to be ripped apart into shreds. Humans may actually be there, but they may unfortunately experience extreme tidal heating, but not actually as the way you think, because, well, since the asteroid has its gravity very, very weak, which is around 21 kilometers, which also means that its gravity is way too weak, it wouldn't have a volcanic surface at all. It would just be completely rocky. That would also mean that maybe its surface would also be hot, so, yeah. The largest inner moon in the Jovian the largest minor moon in the Jovian system is Amalthea. It's an inner moon, but it would also be slowly torn apart soon in the future. If there's colonists, they could live on them and put the resources on them. Unfortunately, in millions of years, it would finally be completely gone from Jupiter's gravity. It would entirely disrupt it. In the Saturn system, the closest ever object in Saturn is S/2009 S1. This currently holds the record of around 11 hours, and it's so close that it's actually touching Saturn's rings. It's actually consuming Saturn's rings, and it's also formed, well, what is probably originally even smaller than its original self when it was formed, but it was also possibly right now feeding its own rings, which is making it larger and larger, or gradually larger. Its size is also smaller than a 1-kilometer asteroid. It's 0.3 the size, but it's also around 300 meters, as it says. If they're somehow colonists, if they're somehow there, then they may be maybe only in bunkers or underground because they can't be adapting in here. Because it would be completely different. Yes. The inner moon may actually have its own shadow, but it may be completely different. I mean, not completely different. It may have its own shadow, and yes, it would probably host people. If not, then it would just be a completely alone world with no people. The furthest ever object, in just only the known one, is Iapetus. Iapetus is the longest. It's also so far that you would see Saturn pretty small, similar to Jupiter in that distance, but just a bit larger, but still pretty far from its orbit. So you would see it pretty far from its orbit. So yeah, but the farthest ever unknown object, which I meant like the furthest ever outermost moon of Saturn in the Saturnian system, as we only know, is S/2020 S44. This is so far that its orbit is around 4.8 years. Its rotation is around 99 days, as it says in Space Engine, and it's so incredible. It holds the furthest ever orbit because it orbits ridiculously far. Its distance from Saturn in the year 2126 at this date, as I already said again, is around 0.22 AU, which is so far that it would be almost impossible to travel. Wait, not impossible. Almost impossible to communicate together with using signals that to communicate together by using radio signals that send at the speed of light and then travel to another one. It's basically like I'm talking about interstellar communication. Instead of just Earth, like as we communicate, but on planets it's completely different. If you were to somehow communicate somebody on Earth and the moon, then it would be completely different. On the moon, you would probably pretty much communicate with somebody on the Earth. But on the moon, it would take around 1.2 seconds. It would be very short because the speed of light is so fast that it would take around 1 second to actually send. Since the speed of light is so fast and since its orbit is around 27 days on the moon, it still is extremely far, so yeah. But still not actually extremely far. But for outer moons on Jovian, it's almost impossible to communicate because they may be pretty far, which communicating at the speed of light would have, like, trouble. Like, sometimes when you send somebody an image or something on another moon, like, for example, if you were, like, on the furthest, most outermost moon, and then you send it somebody to Titan, like, somewhere, like, someone, like, at Titan or something, it would take it would take really long, actually. It would take up to a few minutes until finally reaching, and it would finally send over that. Saturn's outer moons are even longer than the TRAPPIST system's orbits, and it's also even longer than the moons of Jupiter, which I already said. The most innermost known moon, as we know in Saturn, is mostly just Mimas, the Death Star. The next is the Uranian system. This system contains actually around 5 moons. The first is Miranda. Miranda is between the size of Mimas and Enceladus. This also means that it orbits in around 33 hours. Communication on the Uranus system from its moons from Saturn Uranus would be easier, but also would be a bit differently. Would actually be pretty easier. And then, again, at this exact time, if you were to send somebody, like if you were at Miranda and you send a message to somebody living on Ariel, it would just only take almost around 1 second to actually send. because since it's so close to its thing, it would just be that close, so communication at the speed of light would be even easier. So sending a message, it would just take around 1 second. But for Umbriel, it's again, yes, the same. Because Umbriel's orbit is around 4.1 days, but Ariel's orbit is around 2.5 days, and Miranda's is around 33 hours. On Ariel, if you were to communicate somebody on Umbriel at the speed of light, it would be even quicker than a second. Because traveling at this speed would be so fast that it wouldn't even matter anymore. Because it would totally take somewhere around 0.7 seconds, which would be even longer than even shorter than a second. But for somebody who's living on Umbriel and then sent a message to somebody who's living on the largest moon of Uranus, which is Titania, as you already know, the message it would be this exact same, because if you were to go and travel at the speed of light, it would take not really as a long time, so it would take like not actually as long at all. However, if you were on Titania and you sent somebody a message on Oberon in this distance, which is quite far from the distance, it would not really take as long, quite. It would take around 3 seconds, but not really as long, so yeah. Now Neptune. Neptune has around 2 known moons, which is Proteus and Triton. Proteus is quite different. It has a much weaker gravity, but its rotation in orbit is around 26 hours. Communicating together in this exact date, as I said again from this time, would take around 2 seconds to actually get there, so yeah, at the speed of light. From Triton, again, the same thing, because, yeah, the most innermost moon from Uranus is actually Nereid. Nereid is mostly a minor moon, which is an inner moon, so its rotation is around 7 hours. Which is actually similar to Phobos' orbit and rotation. Because Phobos' orbit is around 7 hours. Deimos' orbit is around 30 hours. Anyways, Nereid, if it somehow had a true size of around 29 kilometers in radius, then that would mean that colonists may be a bit massive. If there's somehow humans living on there, then they would probably communicate. And also they could communicate together, but they also have to communicate quite wisely a bit. If someone communicated someone who's living on Thalassa, which is basically the second closest minor moon, which is called Thalassa, it would be extremely quick. It would take around 0.2 seconds. Or 0.1 seconds. It would be like a fraction of a second. So you could actually send somebody an image. Maybe something like that. Unfortunately, these efficient, things that actually are used just efficiently for communicating may actually be later destroyed. So you may actually just be on moons in the future, which, yes, it could take exactly still a second, but they may be a bit longer to like 2 seconds to 3 seconds until finally sending. So, yeah. Now back to Jupiter's moons. If Metis if someone living on Metis is someone if someone was living on that and then someone communicated on their on like on to Adristy, it would take around a fraction of a second, not actually long at all. But for Amalthea, it's quite different. Amalthea's orbit is a bit differently. And you cannot travel to Adristy because you would just hit into Jupiter. The same with Metis. But you can actually travel is Thebe. But it would also, again, take a fraction of a second. Because traveling at the speed of light here would take extremely fast. Not actually a fraction of a second, but instead a bit faster than a second, but still like around 0.8 seconds. Anyone who's living on Europa and then someone communicated on Ganymede, it would take extremely quick. Because in this distance, which is actually quite close to like Ganymede, from a bit closest point, but like nearly like at that distance, it would take around, well, nearly 2 seconds. So it could take a bit of a normal time or something like that. But for Callisto, it's a bit more different. Whoever is living on... so if someone was living on Ganymede, and if someone was sending someone in Callisto, and the signal was reaching at the speed of light, then it would take over a few seconds long. Instead of just, like, normal seconds, it would be around somewhere around, maybe, like 12 seconds. Because since its orbit is around 16 days, it would take a bit of a long time until finally reaching. But what about on Mars? If if humans actually colonized the Martian moons, then that would mean that since Phobos is quite close to Mars, of around 7 hours and 39 minutes, someone can actually communicate to Deimos very efficiently. So if anybody was living on Phobos and then sent a message to somebody who's living on Deimos, then the speed would be like a fraction of a second sent, like literally a fraction. Again, the same with Deimos, but just a bit like longer because they have to travel. The speed of light has to travel, but just a bit different. It would take a fraction of a second. Again, also the same because Deimos, as we see, is actually, we're just seeing it smaller than a second. So if somebody was sending a message to someone on also Mars to Deimos, it would take extremely fast, just a fraction of a second. But for Phobos, even faster. Because since Phobos' distance is even closer, its speed of light is so fast that it would literally reach in a fraction of a second, that which would also be so fast enough that our brains cannot catch it. Deimos is a bit further, but Phobos is so fast that its speed of light would be just instant sent. So yeah. But if there's somebody who's living on Mars and then sent a message to somebody who's living on Phobos, yes, again, it would be the same. But it depends a lot what location you're living at in Phobos. But on Earth, it's a bit more different. As I said again, it's around 1 second. But in this exact date, again, which is actually paused, at the speed of light, again, it would be around 1 second. Because traveling there would just take around 1 second. Also, the moon's dark side also has a blue glow. And it's actually just because of the ocean reflecting from from the moon. Without its ocean, it would just be completely white. But with its ocean, it would be completely blue, like Uranus or Neptune. Reflected from it, but like a bit differently.